All right, so we are joined today by a panelist of intellectuals from every sector, from the business, from the academia, to discuss what has been happening in the country of Zambia for quite some time. As you are very much aware, the power challenges that the country has been facing has greatly impacted the overall standing of the country, the operations, and also the day-to-day affairs. There are a lot of people who have sort of felt squeezed because they cannot compete with the big players out there. So these are the regular barbers, people working in the salons and the small businesses, because the power challenge has greatly affected the country, and government has done its part. And the question is, has that government done enough to ensure that this problem is finally addressed once and for all? Or is it just a temporary fix? So we have a panel of very well-informed people to share some thoughts. And before we go any further, I would like to encourage people at this time, make sure that at least you share the stream with your friends, invite people to jump in and be part of this conversation, because we are discussing a very pertinent subject conversation that affects us all in our day-to-day activities. So we're going to go ahead and bring up our first guest. We're going to start with academia and we'll proceed from there. So join us in a few seconds as we continue the conversation. Now, joining me on the screen is Dr. Lemba Nyirenda, who is a veteran in the field of power and electricity. He's been around for quite some time. And prior to the going live, I was talking to him about Professor Mwenechanya, because I remember Professor Mwenechanya when he was the vice chancellor back in the day. And he also is an expert in the field of electricity. So at least we are privileged to have Dr. Nyirenda to share some thoughts on what has been happening, or perhaps what should be happening to remedy the challenge that the country is facing. So before we jump into any further, Professor Dr. Nyirenda, give us a little background about yourself. So for the people who may not be familiar with your work, I know your work goes back to before some of us were born, but go ahead and just give us a background on your work in this field.
Thank you. Again, I'm Lemba Nyirenda, and I've been in the electricity business for the past 50 years. So I got my first degree from the University of Zambia in 1976. And then we were sent by Act of Parliament to go commission Kafue Gorge Stage 2. That was for 300 megawatts, bringing the station to 900 megawatts. That's Kafue Gorge Power Station. And then the key issue, then from there on, I was part of the ZESCO team. We built the first generation ZESCO. And then even later on, I was part of the process where we built the Energy Regulation Board. And then that brought in the second generation ZESCO. And then thereafter, I moved to the University of Zambia, where I went for my master's degree at the University of California, Irvine, and then later on got my doctorate from the University of California, Irvine, and then also worked in Alaska as a lead engineer in different places, then came back to Zambia in 1986, 1995, and still connected with the University of Zambia, but also a short stint as managing director of ZESCO in 2009. And then a lot of graduates have passed through my hands. And also I've been part of many projects involving the ministry and so on. So right now, where we are is that as a country, we need to reconnect with our history. The most critical thing that was there is that during the Northern Rhodesia government in the 60s, when we got independence, came to GRZ, most of the towns along the line of rail, they all had a thermal power plant of their own. That legacy, somehow we should have still kept it. But then what happened was that in 1972, we had the Zambia Electricity Supply Corporation Act. That act took over all the municipality power systems and also snowballed the thermal power plants which were being fired by coal. And during that time, because we had now power that was coming in through the Central African Power Corporation from Kariba South, and as well as Victoria Falls Power Station. And then later on, even when we brought in Kafue Gorge, we felt that we had a lot of power. Most of these projects were being done through the Ministry of Power, Transport and Communication. Then when the project is complete, it will be given to ZESCO as a holding company to run these assets and all that. But then the challenge in which we find ourselves is that during the MMD time, the National Commission for Development Planning, which was responsible for long-term planning of power lines, what we call enabler infrastructure, was deleted from the equation. So when that happened, it means that the country went to sleep for 40 to 50 years now, because we couldn't even plan for any other things. Because then we transformed ourselves to 5-year national development plans. We deleted this during the time of surplus, but we never looked at long-range planning. But if we are wise, it would be good to come back, especially to bring back the National Commission for Development Planning, to be looking at a planning horizon of 40 to 100 years. The present National Commission development plans look at a 5-year horizon. So that in itself is a constraint. And looking also at some of the practices that we had in the first generation ZESCO, we had load shaving, and it was practiced in Kabwe, Lusaka. We could be able, whoever applies for electricity, connect a relay just to switch off the, not switch off everything in someone's house. We could switch off only the heaters. So that's load shaving. But also we had energy conservation programs. And then another area which is of a big challenge, our national electric code is not complete. If we can take the leaf from India and others, where you can be able to use the adapt maybe the US national electric code, which they began building in the 1800s and all that, which captures everything, the different things that we can be able to use to be able to deal with the energy conservation and all that, and also research and development, to be able to see what are the bad things, good things. We right now, even at the university, we have not put in such approaches. So it's a challenge. We need to look forward. And then also the solar that we're talking about. Solar, you cannot run big business and so on. The challenge is that you need to be able to have thermal power plants in which you bank the equivalent power for solar because of the intermittency. When the clouds come, it will go from 0 to 100, from 100 megawatts to 0. But during that time, very fast, at the near the speed of light, you should be able to have power that's coming in from this spinning reserve. So we have a lot of things to do, and especially our constitution. In the constitution, under the commission section, we should bring back the National Commission for Development Planning. Thank you. for now.
Yeah, I think that's a very good start, Professor. I think having the history, it helps us understand where we are coming from so that at least we know where we are. How did we get to this point? And obviously looking at what are the possible things that we can learn from obviously the past and try to avoid so as we move forward. So we're going to bring up another gentleman who is coming from I think this is the Zambian Association of Manufacturers, and let's get a different perspective, and then we'll be right back with the more conversation about the power load shedding, power cuts in Zambia.
My name is Michelo Maunga. I'm a policy analyst from the Zambia Association of Manufacturers. I am an economist by profession from the University of Zambia and currently pursuing a master's from Zikas University. My work at the Association of Manufacturers revolves around helping foster a conducive environment, a conducive business environment for Zambian manufacturing. And facilitate its increased contribution to GDP. Presently, it contributes 9.2% to our national output, and we're working towards it, that contribution rising to at least 36% by 2030. So this involves interfacing quite regularly with government ministries such as the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprise Development, as well as cooperating partners and other private sector bodies. Thank you. Well, from the energy sector, there has been some improvement from this time last year. So the power utility has come out in the public and mentioned that the reservoir levels at most of our hydropower stations are above what they were this time last year. Though we are not where we would like to be, which is why we still have load shedding, but there is a modest improvement looking at the favorable 2024 to 2025 rain season. Currently, we're at 7 hours of power per day, and it looks as though that will be sustained till the end of the year. Though we were, as citizens, we were hoping for a bit more power than that. But nonetheless, I do believe other energy alternatives, particularly at household levels, at industrial levels, have been made available, and the prices of those energy equipments are also now within reach to most households. So we are not in the clear in terms of our energy challenges. There has been an improvement though, but from reports that have been made available, if we have another favorable rain season this year, we may see load shedding end in the coming year.
Yeah, so some of us, we were under the assumption that with the load shedding, everything is going to be, with the rains, everything should be improved. Because I think the Zambezi authorities, the people who are keeping up on the electricity, water levels in the Kariba, I think they were notifying us all that the water levels have improved. But for some reason, we still have this power challenges. So I think we can only hope, because this is negatively impacting the country, and obviously you wouldn't want this thing to last forever. So this is part of the reason why I think there has been some obviously outcry from the community, the people. I think for quite some time, people have now gotten used to this, I guess, new way of living, but it's not supposed to be like that. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and then we'll circle back with now the formal questions for everybody else, but we just wanted to get some introduction from everyone else before we proceed any further. Now we have Mr. Freeman Mubanga. Mr. Freeman Mubanga, how are you doing, sir?
Thank you very much. I'm doing fine, Noah, and how are you doing?
Good, good. Yeah, just tell us a little bit about your background and so that for those people who are not familiar with you, tell us a little bit so that we know which sector you are coming from and also what qualifies you to speak on these matters. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Noah. So, like you said, my name is Freeman Mubanga. I am the head of research and studies at the Center for Environment Justice. We are a local NGO based right here in Zambia, in Lusaka. And in terms of my background, actually my background is in agroforestry, with my alma mater being the Copperbelt University. I'm currently pursuing an MSc in agroforestry and food security at Banga University under the Commonwealth Distance Learning Scholarship. Aside from that, my work at the Center for Environment Justice spans from a different number of thematics, including extractive industries, climate change, water security, agriculture and livelihood support, but then with the subject matter that has brought us here, that is supporting sustainable renewable energy. And so what we do under the thematics for sustainable renewable energy at the Center for Environment Justice, of course, it's policy advocacy, trying to work with rural communities in terms of supporting the implementation of renewable energy transition, and then also working around policy incentives that focuses on pro-poor policy advice that taps into what is working at local communities and then bringing the conversations all the way up to national level. So what brings CEJ in this conversation really is to try to balance the mix, because oftentimes we talk about major corporate investments in energy whilst we forget the marginalized entities within the conversation, and these obviously could be rural communities that depend on the energy for the works that you mentioned earlier, for example, well-being, schools in the rural communities, clinics, and stuff like that. So we bring into this conversation some of the conversations we've been having with communities with regards to the load shedding, power cuts, but ultimately, how can we tap into the solutions that are coming from grassroots level? Thank you, Noah.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, sir. That's very well said, because I think it's always important to get different perspectives and try to bring all the heads onto the table, or in the military they say all hands on deck, so that at least we can figure out exactly what is happening and how that can be improved. So now we're going to transition a little bit to go to, I think, Solamax, and this is Mr. Ziti Simubemba. Mr. Ziti Simubemba.
Wow, thank you so much, moderator. My name is Ziti Simumbembe, and I'm a managing director for SolarMax Energy. So here at SolarMax Energy, we fully appreciate critical energy challenges currently facing industrial operations. So with these challenges, basically it has affected quite a lot of businesses. Just a bit of background about myself. I'm an entrepreneur. And SolarMax was registered way back as the year 2015. We have experienced about 11 years now. We've been around and we've faced quite a lot of challenges in the industry. But just to basically quickly move to the topic at hand. Yeah. At SolarMax Energy, we fully appreciate the critical energy challenges currently facing industrial operations and factories, pharmaceuticals, and the chemical plants, as well as commercial buildings amidst of escalating electricity tariffs and also unreliable and greedy connections. All these inefficiencies basically pose a threat to business continuity and profitability. So how do we address these challenges? This is why you have organized this forum in order for us to share the insights and the solutions to the problems at hand. So we are pleased to introduce solar is not just. I bet to differ a bit with Dr. Lemba. I think technology is quite advanced now, and solar is become also very important. And in the energy mix, the fact that right now, I think it's time that we need to change our mindset and start looking for these other solutions like solar mix. With solar now, we are able to have storage, okay, where we integrate the storage with solar PV systems. These are meticulously designed to meet and indeed surpass the demand of complex industrial environment. At SolarMax, at the moment, we have actually solutions that guarantee dependable high-performance energy output, whether required for uninterruptible manufacturing processes, sensitive laboratory equipment, or extensive commercial activities. So these are big units now. That's quite advanced. It's all in one. It has they have some batteries, storage inside it. It's an inverter. They range from 100 kilowatts up to with a storage of 200 kilowatt hour. And these units basically can be paired or paralleled into up to 11 units, making up about 1 megawatts. So these are technologies that basically can be used to answer our challenges in Zambia right now. So currently we have what we call our latest 2 series machines and engineered with 3 principal solutions to support businesses. These range energy storage, integrated photovoltaic storage, and storage and the charging. All these features all in one unit, basically that could help businesses, including copper smelters. So just to emphasize that solar actually has advanced and can be a solution, because the sun is always there for us. At least it's guaranteed. It has no season. And in Zambia, we are placed in an environment where we have sunlight that is guaranteed all the time. So just a brief about solar. And these are equipment that are actually accessed, that you can access right here in Zambia, and with quick installations without even taking much of time. So the economic benefits through these intelligent peak shifting and the value filling, extending equipment lifespan, increasing output value, and minimizes losses from energy power supplies. So they are basically solutions available. The only issue maybe we need to tackle now is moderator, is the issue of how the opportunity that is supposed to be tapped into the local industry. And this is a major challenge that I've found in our industry, especially in solar renewable. You see, the window is very small. It's a window of opportunity for local businesses. However, due to lack of reforms, and this is why I'm very interested to basically Mr. Freeman Mubanga, the police, these are police, makers. I think it is high time that we needed to put our house in order. It is a good thing that we have so many players that have come on board, the foreign counterparts. However, without proper reforms, this will basically kill the local industry. How? Look at this way, Mr. Moderator. Zambia has basically removed all the tariffs on, let's talk about taxes on solar, and which is a good thing. However, we've missed the opportunity because Zambia, we do not manufacture any solar equipment, including the solar modules, batteries. It's rarely manufactured here in Zambia, so we are importing everything. So how do we miss the opportunity? A local contractor, say in the solar industry, goes to China, order these stuff. Basically, when it comes to borrowing maybe capital, you borrow it at a higher rate, between 28% plus. Yet a Chinese, or let me just say a foreign investor will basically come with a lower borrowing rate from their country, and they come in here, they are not taxed. They're basically, you cannot compete favorably with the local contractors that are basically highly charged interest from the bank. And the other thing is that as you want to partner with these manufacturers, you discover that you make 3, 4, maybe say consignments. You get to order these containers, you bring them in the country, and they are not also these foreign investors, or let me call them investors. Basically, they are not restricted in any way to come into the country, and they'll compete with you without challenges. And even if you made certain, let's say you make collaborations and you want to work with them, they supply you, they will definitely come to Zambia, set up some business that you're doing, and lower the prices. At the end of the day, they put you out of business. Remember, these are giants with power to manufacture. They have monies, and even in tenders, you find competing with the very manufacturers at that level. So we are missing the opportunity. What we'd love to see is that we make reforms and have, this industry regulations that supports the local content, that supports the local industry leaders that are running these businesses. So with that, it will really help a lot, because the window is very small. Remember, very soon, this deficit will be over. And then our foreign friends will definitely move to another country where there will be market. So what is going to remain in Zambia is that you have no knowledge transfer, you have basically no leaders, and unemployment levels will go high because local businesses would have been closed down. And that's what is happening. If you take a survey right now, you'll find that many Zambian solar companies are really struggling. Chinese have really, those that are, just to look at, South Africa had load shedding ahead of us, so was Zimbabwe. And these guys have somehow, they've managed they've managed the situation. And after having managed this situation, the Chinese that brought so much stock in those countries. Now I've seen Zambia as a place where they can auction all their products, and they've come on board. And this is why you find there's an influx of solar products, and at residential level, they've entered the market and gotten all the market share and eliminating every single Zambian businessman out there, because whether they reduce the price, there is no tax on them. But this is a deliberate policy the government should work on. Number one, they need to basically introduce, this is just my thought, they should introduce taxes on foreign companies to force them partner with the Zambian. In that, it will force that, there will be what we call knowledge transfer with the Zambian companies, who basically have, who compete favorably, and the government will not lose taxes because it will help now, would you help merge the Zambians and the foreign companies to work together. And with this, for me, it's a plus.
No, that's good. I think like that's I was hoping for. Thank you for that opening and your presentation. So I think let's have Mr. Mitchell. Are you able to respond? Because I think we are waiting for Dr. Nyirenda to share his thoughts. But I think go ahead if there's something that you have to say to Mr. ZT.
Yeah, responding to Mr. Ziti's comments, I acknowledge his sentiments regarding foreign competition in the renewable energy sector, but the priority right now, I do believe from the government's point of view, is lowering the prices of these items. And the way you do that is by allowing diverse stakeholders to participate in the market. And with that, then we can have more Zambians have renewable energy solutions. Nonetheless, this should not be at the or to the detriment of Zambian suppliers. And therefore, it's ideal that there's some common ground that is found where local suppliers are not prevented from, or their businesses are still allowed to thrive. Other than that, those are just my comments on Mr. Ziti's submission.
I think I agree with you, Mr. Maunga, in terms of the reason why we have seen the level of diversification that government has tried to bring in terms of the key players that are contributing to electricity generation, given the technologies that are being used. But the key point, what I've noticed is, when you look at the policy incentives, for example, that government has just done within the short period, you have the statutory instrument number 40. That is just a regulation on open access to avoid the monopoly that ZESCO was doing, to open it up to other key players that can contribute to generation. Aside from that, you also have the net metering, for example, which was another initiative. In terms of how these have been implemented, for example, net metering, that begs more answers, for example, from other professionals like Dr. Nyirenda, who can speak maybe towards that in terms of policy implementation, for example. But aside from that, when you look at the situation that my colleague was talking about, of course, yes, government had given removed the importation tax on several, technologies, green technologies like solar. But the challenge that was also realized in 2024, if I remember very well, and this was recorded in News Diggers, and this should have been the Zambia Revenue Authority commenting that there was a challenge. While there was that incentive from the suppliers, they were importing these technologies in Zambia at zero tax, but this did not transition to the consumer. The technologies are still being sold at a premium price, and that incentive has failed to work in terms of translating to what government intended to do. So because of the power shortages, government knew that we'd be struggling in the interim, try to meet the deficit. But what we can do in the interim is to ensure that if we can have products that can come in as alternative sources of energy, such as solar, people can buy them at more subsidized prices by government removing the actual importation tax. But this has literally failed to translate to the consumers. And I'm speaking this because we've been working with communities, for example, that cannot afford some of the solar products, solutions that we're seeing. And we can comment and say, yes, solar energy has taken center stage as the alternative source of energy in Zambia, seconded by, LPG gas, those that are using gas cookers. And mostly when you look at the consumption of energy in Zambia, it's usually for heating and cooking. But when you talk about lighting in rural communities, most people don't depend on energy for cooking and heating. They depend on energy for heating, because for them, the alternative source of energy for heating and cooking is usually firewood. And they rarely use charcoal in the deep rurals, unless maybe the peri-urbans and urban communities where charcoal is being used as the alternative, the cheapest alternative source of energy. In any case, my point is, if we are to say that, are there any interventions that have happened so far from government at policy level, at technology level? I think government has tried. Number one, to diversify the energy sector, to include more players in the generation. But the challenge has been, we need significant, if it's going to be investments like public partnerships to come in, yes, we might need that on the generation side. On the supply side, these are happening. But on the consumer side, the challenge is the tariffs are high if you're going to be connected on the national grid. If you want to switch to an alternative source of energy, still the prices are high to buy solar. And the other challenge is that most suppliers do not offer, after sale services. So once you buy, if you need further service, you still have to pay for that service. So can we have, packages like warranties, for example, guarantees? I know they are there, but how about after sale services for people that cannot afford to come at premium price? So for me, this is where the challenge is. Then my recommendation, perhaps maybe to government, would be how best can we monitor, the way renewable technologies are being sold out there? Can we do, across? Country monitoring of how, because right now the market is being exploited. Everyone now wants to become a supplier of solar technology because of the move of importation tax. But are these people who are supplying really, first of all, are they professionals within the sector? What background do they have? Are they assuring that the technologies they're bringing in the country are of standard? We are seeing so many solar products out there, and they have questions on standard. Somebody buys a solar system this month. Within the next few months, it's damaged. So we need to have quality assurance that government can monitor that. We also need to monitor how the incentive of removing importation tax, how is it working? Is it still there as government removes? And the products that do not have importation tax on them, how can government ensure that indeed the consumers are benefiting from such? Thank you so much, Noah.
Premier Media is one of the fastest growing independent media enterprises that produces bias-free content and streams educational programs to empower Africans, African Americans, and the African diaspora around the globe. Premier Media owns and operates a valuable portfolio of streaming programs, such as Primetime Show, The Circle of Love, Leadership Files, and Revolution. Not forgetting our signature development panel series, which features experts around the world that highlight challenges and opportunities in Africa, putting Africa in the center of global conversations. For more information, visit us at premiermedia.com or follow us on social media.
Yeah, so Zambia is putting Africa on the map on load shedding. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. So let's have Professor Dr. Nyirenda respond, because I think his name was brought up. Dr. Nyirenda, what are your, I think you've heard what has been shared from Mr. Ziti from SolarMax and the other colleagues. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, I appreciate the comments that have come from my colleagues. But for us who are in this business, for example, if we look at the way things are, the thing that drives investment in generation is the demand side. And for Zambia, the key driver is the mines. Even at the time of independence, the reason why we have the 330 kV lines running from south, where the power stations are, to the north, to Copper Belt and all that, is because that's where the demand is. The demand drives development for electricity. Now, when we're talking about large-scale power, there's a big difference between small-scale power that is in the domestic or some commercial places and so on, where most of the players in the solar are. If you come to look at ZESCO, ZESCO now has what we call grid-connected hybrid inverters, which are about 50 megawatts. You know, these large ones that you are connecting to feed into the grid. Even a CEC on the Copper Belt has what we call solar farms and all that. This is big scale kind of thing that I'm talking about. So the power deficit, you cannot really clear it with these small domestic kind of solar following inverters and all that. And you can also have grid forming inverters and whatever it is. But the point is that if you're gonna develop the nation, you need big power. When you need big power, you have to have what we call banking arrangements in standing by spinning reserve. It could be hydro, it could be nuclear, it could be whatever. Because whenever there's cloud cover, even here at my house, I have solar lamps that are there. You'll find that the charging is affected by cloud cover. That's what we mean by intermittency. Now, intermittency, you have to bank the power. For example, if you're dealing with power where you're running my lifts, people going up and down. So if they're being fed by big solar for somewhere, that cloud, when it comes, the power can move from 100 to 0. But the people in the lift shouldn't see that difference. So there has to be power that comes from somewhere else. So I appreciate whatever comments that are there. But in terms of big power, intermittency is there.
What's your take? What's your take so far?
Well, I appreciate the comments from the other speakers. And I do believe in present efforts to increase our generation capacity in Zambia. Considerations have been made for how solar sometimes can be a bit variable, especially with regards to weather. And so for this reason, you've seen that it's not just solar plants that are being planned for, but we have a number of thermal plants that are under construction. The most notable one is the expansion at Mamba Collieries. Should be another power station in Southern Province. There's the hydropower plants as well, away from the southern part of the country towards parts of the country where there's dry spells are not as common, such as the north. So in Wapula, those parts of the country. You have something in Western Province as well. So it's basically about diversifying our energy mix. So all these different energy sources have a role to play, be it hydro, be it solar, be it coal, be it nuclear, as the doctor was referring to, and any amount of diversification that we can achieve at the moment will be beneficial, because presently 86% of our power comes from hydro, which is very which shows the high concentration of hydropower in our energy sources. But in summary, those are just some of my thoughts on this issue.
Yeah, so we have tackled, I know we had some questions which were shared, but I think we had, based on the conversation, I think it leads to this question. What are your thoughts, given the significant impact of frequent power shortages on industrial productivity and business operations? What immediate long-term strategies can business sector adopt to build resilience against?
Yes, so now with one of the speakers made reference to open access. So with open access, what that means is that it's not only ZESCO that can use the transmission and distribution infrastructure in the country. So therefore, independent power producers can wheel electricity to their customers using the ZESCO grid, whilst they pay a wheeling charge to the power authority. So what this does is that it immediately means that large-scale power consumers can source electricity away from what they usually get from ZESCO. So we have some private sector companies, some manufacturers who are using this facility to obtain power from corporations such as Power Africa. Others are obtaining power from the region, the Southern African region. I do believe the mines have been utilizing these facilities as well, and through that, it shields the companies that can pay for this power from the interruptions from the ZESCO, interruptions. Aside from that, we do have some manufacturers who are producing their own power. This can be through biogas. Case in point is Zambia Sugar, where from their production processes, they're able to generate electricity. And the obvious alternatives are investing in renewable energy, such as solar power and diesel generators. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so Mr. Mubanga, I know you've been sitting silently in the background there, and I'm sure you are eager to jump in and share some thoughts. Go ahead, Mr. Mubanga.
Right. Thank you so much, Noah. And I really just want to thank what Mr. Maunga was saying, especially the fact that he also managed to highlight some of the interventions could be short-term, but obviously could run into long-term that government is doing, of course, through the partnership with Mamba Collieries, the thermal plant. And the comment that I had, and I'm sure maybe Mr. Maunga can comment later on, is, you see, there's a lot of contestation with the thermal plants being run or being powered by coal, of course, with the concept of climate change. And we know that Zambia, since the coming in of the new regime, has placed itself on the global map as a country that is willing to champion climate change. So we know that from one of the COP meetings that were held back then, the Conference of Parties, of course, on climate change, there was one in particular where coal was an issue because it being a fossil, and we saw some European countries, coming out of the use of coal. But after the energy crisis, after the Ukraine and Russia war started, we saw countries like Germany, for example, and other countries in Europe going back to the use of coal. And I'm not just saying the use of coal in small amounts, but extensively. So now when it comes home, when you look at some of the solutions and the challenges, that the hurdles that we run into, for example, you would want to use thermal plants that are being powered by coal. Then you're being thrown with these questions of, but aren't you still carbonizing? Because we want to use renewable energies to avoid the green gas emissions. So there have been conversations on how to mitigate that through different technologies. And I know engineers would talk about the flue gas diffuserizers, for example, talk about fabric capture of the particulate matter from the fumes. Some would even go as far as talking about carbon capture and storage, a technology I think that should be FQM, one of the mines in the I don't know if FQM they're also using carbon capture and storage technology. But my point really is government is in a fix. The immediate short-term solution through thermal plants, it's being challenged at so many levels in terms of the climate change conversation. But the key question that we are asking ourselves is the concept of energy transition is that it has to be just. But justice means that it has to be equitable to what you can manage as a country as you are transitioning. So currently, Zambia cannot knock out coal completely, and that is a fact. And we need coal to power as much as we can in terms of the thermal plants. But the key question would be, as we progress, to what extent can we start reducing on the use of fossil fuels as we power our energy plants to curb the, of course, the deficit that we have for energy supply. And then secondly, commenting on solar, I think the adoption has been quite well, to be honest. Solar adoption has been quite well. But if we're going to piggyback on Dr. Nyerenda's comment or Professor Nyerenda's comment, I think his worry is if we are going to talk about the long-term spectrum of meeting the deficit, some of these technologies that we are proposing, to be honest, cannot meet the long-term energy deficit. Because we need so much energy. If we're going to talk about, Zambia currently is talking about expanding to 3 million metric tons of copper by, is it the year 2030? Now, the question is, we need more energy because us expanding to that level of tonnage in copper production, it means there will be need for more energy. And the energy that meets that industrialization level really cannot be the solar energies we're talking about, unless if the country can expand our solar plants across the country, but at the same time increase the mix with other technologies. For example, what Mamba Co is Mamba, they're called Mamba Energy Limited, if I'm not mistaken. What they're doing with the thermal plants, can we have other companies that can take up the same, business enterprise that Mamba College is doing? They're a mining company that has diversified their company strategy into energy generation. Imagine if other mining companies can tap into the same strategy and expand a small section just to contribute for their own energy. And for me, that is very key. If most mining companies can expand their mining business, structure to start generating energy to feed into their own production mix, I think that will also help to reduce on the demand on the national grid to meet on to help the country to meet its energy needs. Remember, there's also the Sustainable Development Goal number 7, which promotes access to clean and affordable energy by everyone by 2030. So those are some of the issues that I thought I could share, piggybacking on Mr. Maunga's comment. Brilliant comment, by the way.
Yeah. So thank you. I actually, this now brings us to Mr. Ziti. I'm sure he's anxious to jump in and share his thoughts. Mr. Ziti, your take, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm back again here. I've listened to all the speakers, and they've brought out varied points. And I guess we need to basically come together and provide solutions for our country. energy is a big topic now and beyond. We really need solutions, and the Zambians must take the lead. I'll always emphasize that we need to come on board and basically not only suggest but be participants in bringing out solutions. I'll not talk much about other energy sources, but I'll stick to what I'm basically specialized in under solar. And I believe that, yes, solar is one of the sources that the country can right now in the short term thrive on. Just if the government could support the local industry and transfer this knowledge, into the local ones by blending them together with our foreign counterparts. There will be always knowledge transfer, and it's just a matter of time. And the Zambians will be able to now have these factories within us, even if the crisis is over. Would have created an industry that is going to develop and gradually improve. But as it is right now, we do not have policies that supports the local industry. Instead, we are basically focusing on the crisis that has hit us now. And the only fear that I have is that as soon as this crisis is seemingly, being resolved, we'll have no industry left to continue, exploiting the opportunities and also able to service these power plants that are going to be dotted around the country. So we need participation from Zambians to work hand in hand with with our foreign counterparts in this industry. And the only way is the government is to basically come in and basically provide roadmap, provide policies that helps to combine the two, the foreign and also the local. And the other point is that we needed basically to free. When you look at the situation, most of the power demand at residential level, it's quite a lot. But if we can come up with the deliberate policies where, at household level, they are helped to finance some of the upfront cost that comes with solar, because solar is expensive. Whether you bring down the cost of solar panels to as low as 1,000 per panel or 500 kwacha per panel, it will still be a cost. We need to basically have deliberate policies where government can finance through the banks, of course, at lower rates, finance some of these upfront costs that comes with it, and it will easy. I love the way ZESCO has come up with this net metering, which is being promoted. But there's one thing that is missing, and that's financial costs, the upfront costs, which are high. Even when banks are offering these solar financing, but the interest also are still high. Basically, this is why you see there isn't much change, and many people out there are still in the dark. So there's a lot, or maybe borrowing other words from other speakers to say, they need some incentives, or which word can I use now? The government need to come in to basically invest at residential level. Rooftops must be promoted so that during daytime, the ZESCO should not even worry about residential powering of households, but solar should take up, and at sunset, as industries are not operational, that power is given back to residential, and that way we can strike a balance and basically, generate more power. At the same time, during daytime, lights are off in most of households, and this power could be transmitted to to the grid and giving more power. At night, these guys can utilize the power that is stored in the battery, and it will ease the stress on the grid. And this is the solution and something that the government should embrace. I think solar in a short term is the best technology to use. All we need is the financing on these solar equipments and the help at residential level just to ease the burden for most of the businesses. And this is where economy thrives. Most of these people that are running barber shops and saloons are greatly affected, and businesses are closing. So having support, or even just getting 100 kilowatt for each market to support smaller businesses in those areas, it will quite help and ease the burdens from people, and the economy starts basically performing better. And these are my suggestions that I think can help us thrive in all this. And plus the combination of Zambian people, Zambian business owners that are running solar companies, deliberate policy that can help them, combine and transfer that knowledge so that as soon as our colleagues are basically gone down, the market is exhausted, Zambians will still be there thriving and pushing and taking care of our people, in terms of, maintenance and operations. Very, very important. Because if they are sidelined and now Chinese will take over and basically in a short term, say 1 year to 3 years from now, trust me, this whole crisis will be over. But then who's going to maintain those solar equipment that you've brought in? When Zambians have basically been sidelined, their businesses have gone down. And this is why policy is very important for us to work hand in hand and transfer this knowledge into Zambians so that they're able to take it up from there. That's the point I'm trying to make.
All right, so we have everybody projected up there on the screen, and there are some questions. I think let's go to one of the questions which was posted in the group. I believe it's this one. What is the impact of high debt levels and fiscal limitation on investment in the new energy infrastructure in Zambia? I think this question was posed by Mr. Mobanga. So any of the gentlemen can take a snap.
Yeah, so I can probably contribute to that question. So presently, at the level of our debt as a country is roughly equates our GDP. So our debt to GDP ratio is about 100%, slightly over, which is very unsustainable. So much so that we've had to restructure our debts and with support from the International Monetary Fund. Now, previously, in previous years, we did see the government borrow money to invest in energy infrastructure, such as Kafue Gorge. The notable example is Kafue Gorge Lower Power Station should be. But then the fiscal space is just not there to do that currently because government is so indebted. So what is happening is that the burden is being shifted to the private sector. So most of what we are seeing is in the hands of private sector, not government itself financing and in putting up power infrastructure.
Professor, you wanna take a snap at this question? Oh, it's also feel free. I mean, you can respond to, I think, the previous speaker or the other speaker if there were some areas where you felt like you needed to respond. So this goes to everybody else. I know Solar Parks is, I don't know if there are any questions you want to ask the other panelists. Feel free. This is the time.
Yeah. First of all, beginning with the high debt issue. You know, the high debt issue, basically, it requires that us as Zambia, we need to look at our wealth stewardship. Zambia is not a poor country. So we need to find a way that the gold that we hear about, all these things that we hear about, sure, we should find a way of harnessing that and start paying for our projects. For example, the Zambia-Tanzania interconnector. It is so interesting that the Zambian side, we are depending on donations to come from Europe and other places. But if you look at Tanzania and Kenya, they are actually financing and they've paid these things off from their own side. So you can see for us, our things take a long time, but we are not a poor country. So we need to reconfigure ourselves, see how we use our wealth. That's one direction. But the parts that I wanted to talk about related to what we are talking about, one of them was the open access. You see, the open access idea, you need to be able to understand the roads, you know, just like you have what we call trunk roads, main roads, and feeder roads. The same for electricity. Most of the open access common carrier issue works better at the transmission level. So when you are transporting big power at that level is easy. But when you try to go to distribution, the lines are too small. Okay, so you need to have road maps that come up either from ARB and ZESCO to tell you that when I reach in Chungola, from the main substation from here to here, the roads are this to go reach this customer and whatever it is. So the open access, when you go in the distribution side, the infrastructure is old and also the lines are small. So when we apply what we call the max flow mini cut theorem, as it were, you can't move the big power that is at the transmission level to the distribution level to the market that you're talking about. So these kind of things, it's us, the experts and others, should come up with a proper map on how you can move this electricity and so on. So this open access thing, it's nice to talk about it, but you need to understand the network configuration and the limitations that are there. So we need also to work on R&D. How do we expand this road, just like the way RDA is doing, but you have to do the same at the electricity side of things. Then the other issue is the power quality. You see, whenever there is an outage, what happens is that many people leave things on. So like here where we are in Avondale, so each time the power comes back, which is say around 18 hours and so on, because you have so many people have left everything on, what happens is that the power quality standards are violated. So the voltage comes at about 176 to 173 volts. That's what we get every day. But the problem with that low voltage is that it will burn your motors, it will affect your insulation level, to do all these things. And in the end, what happens is that and also sometimes the voltage becomes too high, which is a swell, then it burns a lot of things. So there is a lot of damage from the power quality side as we are able to, when the power comes back. But what we could be able to do is that we could have what we call grid forming inverters. The utility at every bus where there's low voltage you could be able to control that voltage, change the voltage magnitude, and so on, so that you're safeguarding people's electrical apparatus. And when you try to sue concerning these things that are happening up and down, it's very hard for the ordinary person to observe. So there's what we call conformity assessment standards. And also, there is also the IEC renewable energy standards with ZABS and the National Compulsory Standards Agency. All these things need to come into play, like the way things are. Right now, the consumer is left on their own. At the same time, from the demand side and the supply side, we should be talking to each other. In a particular area, they should be, like at one time I noticed ZESCO would send out a message, say, help us switch off this, and so on, so that we can build up, we can raise up the voltage here and there. So we need to be able to come up with more of an automatic way, a smart way of the demand side as well as the supply side to work together, so that the grid following inverters, which are mostly across the place, and especially those which are part of the net metering, can be able to supply the power where we are. But we need proper roads for electricity to exploit the open access issue. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's well said, sir. That's well said, sir. Let's go to Mr. Mubanga. Freeman, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And the reason why, Prof. and indeed other speakers, why we were even asking the question of the impacts of high debt and fiscal limitations, I think from the response that Mr. Maunga gave, why he was looking at comparing the two in terms of the debt that we have and our GDP. Hypothetically, let's imagine we have a private sector that has come on board to help with the investments we need in energy infrastructure, and everything is set up. Don't you feel that leaving so much to private sector would, in the long term, have significant impacts on the tariffs? That is being talking about high tariffs in the long term, because they would want to retain the initial investments that they've put in. What are your comments on that, given that we have the high level debt and fiscal limitations, therefore leaving almost everything to private sector? Won't that have an impact on tariffs in the long run?
Well, it's if I may comment, it's a good question. But what we tend to see with private sector is that they increased efficiencies. So, and also with private sector, you're able to generate competition. And what that does is that as more players compete, obviously the one who offers a better price tends to fare better. So we've seen this with petroleum products, with particularly diesel, through the open access to the Tazama pipeline. So what that has done is that because different suppliers are bidding to the Ministry of Energy, the ministry is able to select the bidder who has the lowest price. So it's a similar thing if you have with electricity. If you have several private sector players supplying electricity, then consumers are able to select the supplier that has the most favorable price. So there is that argument. However, you could also say that leaving everything into the private sector may result in exploitation of consumers. Now, this would be the case if there was only one producer. So if there was a monopoly, then, or if there was an oligopoly where you have 2 or 3 producers. But if we can have several, then what we tend to find in a competitive market, prices do tend to come down.
Strong.
Okay.
or should we tap into that to address some of these challenges?
All right. Okay. So when we come to this topic for constituent development fund, I think most of the challenges that we have faced is that around it, basically, there are certain restrictions. Say you have, let's say, Solamax is registered in Lusaka and also in Kitwe. And these areas, most of municipal councils will basically restrict it to only, it's within that district, because it's a constituency development fund, and mostly you discover that it basically promotes each constituency having companies. But how many Zambians basically would come from Kaputa, from Bavara constituency with solar to participate, all that? So you discover that some of these funds is rarely, utilized in such areas, and we see less development, and that's a challenge. So we need to promote more of local content, support local businesses if we are to see real value in most of these constituency development funds. Where can you get a contractor in a place like in Bavara constituency? It's a total village, and even just for people to access that fund, it is quite a challenge. So there's more to do. I think we need to embrace, create more roadmap and educate sensitization, teaching our people on basically these issues. Otherwise, there will be less development. Unless we open up or we come up with a roadmap, by the year we reach this one, we'll be able to, have developed some companies to take up these projects in such areas. So as for now, we need to really open so that it can help the local companies that are there to participate in CDF funds. And the other thing is, those that are in Lusaka and the Copper Belt, in urban areas, so to say, you will discover that nothing really restricts our foreign counterparts. They also compete at that same level. And usually the criteria to select a contractor is usually low, at least, this selected bidder, someone who has offered the lowest, pricing. At that level, it disadvantages basically the local contractors that have these hurdles in terms of accessing funds, finances. I think we have a lot to do as a country. I think we need to formulate laws that helps promote a local industry, because that's where development is actually coming from. But if we keep on having the mindset of, say, a foreign company offer a low cost, a foreign company offer this much, forgetting about the local industry, it becomes a challenge really to foster and promote the local industry, and like that economy will not go anywhere.
We're going to go to Dr. Nyirenda. Dr. Nyirenda, looking at what has been discussed and what needs to be done, obviously, in future, I think Zambia still has a long way to go. Basically, what are your final thoughts? Where do we go from here?
Where we go from here, first of all, is look back at our history. What used to work, let's see how we can bring it back, especially like the National Commission for Development Planning. That's one. Then the other thing is that we need to renovate, to look at things differently, because we are going into the fourth industrial revolution. Our youth, for the next 50 years, in Africa, by 2050, they should be the superpower and all that. But then what does this require? It requires, for example, we've been talking about the private sector here. It is very strange. The years that I worked in the United States, the company I worked for in the advanced technology division of Fluor Daniel, what it is, every big company was, one side is the private sector, but it is private sector run and private business on one side, but inside there is the government section. That government section is very important. It would be able to bring, they would bring technology and money to commercialize, to bring to the other side. So basically any big company, even like Zesco, they should be actually be a parastatal. The private sector one side, the government sector the other side. If you go all over, Toyota, Benz, Tata, whatever. So there is this business of talking about the private sector, which is very interesting. We need to be able to have a hybrid because, like, for example, during emergencies, like the way it is in Ukraine and other places, you see, the government has to come in. So you do need to have a certain power stations and this and that to be able to supply during emergencies. During normal time, it's a little bit different. So one of my final thoughts is R&D. R&D to be able to see how do we reconfigure ourselves in terms of the network, in terms of the future, how do we grow the energy mix, and making sure that both government, the people, and everybody, we are on the same page. Thank you.
Yeah, well said, sir. Thank you, thank you. Now we're gonna go to just in the order that we started. Mr. Maung.
My final thoughts are our present situation could certainly have been avoided. Now, corrective measures have been put in place. Now, the thing with energy investments is that they do take a bit of time to materialize. So whilst corrective interventions have been put in place, it will be a few years before they begin to bear fruit. Nonetheless, in saying that, we are on the path towards recovery and energy self-sufficiency. And what this crisis has done is that it's placed much of our focus on our electricity sector, which is what is needed to continue the growth of our economy. My other final remarks are just on the importance of energy to the economy, to sectors such as manufacturing, mining, tourism, retail. It's basically indispensable. You cannot have an economy without energy. So, but generally, other than that, I have nothing more to say. Thank you.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Maunga, and we're gonna proceed to Mr. Freeman Mubanga. Your final thoughts, sir.
Thank you so much, Noah. Really, my final thoughts are stretched to the point. First and foremost, I think we also need to tap into the regional energy projects, either through the common markets or through the energy pools we either contribute to. So, for example, there were rumors of the Congo, hydro power project that was capable, actually feeding, if not the entire continent, if it's done to its perfection. Now, for me, such projects are things that even at AU level, we need, at African Union level, we need to take interest in regional energy generation projects. That being said, I feel that if each common market, for example, or whether we are talking about the SADC, the eastern side, if we can have major energy projects and then we kind of sink in at continental level, that will also help to meet the energy deficiency, not only in Zambia, but also across Africa in the long run. Then last but not the least, I think there are certain initiatives that have been already in place in Zambia. For example, the Rural Electrification Agency. That in itself, for me, how can we support that initiative to right now when there's deficit and we are challenged, how can we support the RIA project? I know some of the challenges they were facing is underutilization. So not so the rural communities were failing to utilize the energy that was being supplied by RIA. How can we, enhance such initiatives to meet the demands that we have now? We may not entirely reinvent the wheel. Some of the solutions, we already have them. It's just an idea of boosting them and then seeing them how they can fit into what we are trying to work on. So in a nutshell, for me, those are my closing remarks. Regional energy generation, and then also tapping into some of the existing initiatives to make them more suitable for the current deficit. Thank you, Noah.
Thank you, sir. And to close us out, Mr. ZT, your final thoughts.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful discussion, quite elaborate. And my final remarks at this moment is that I call out for all the professors, Dr. Lemba, and everyone else, all the players, to basically come on board and basically, come to formulate policies. I think everything works well when you have policies that support the energy sector. In the solar renewable energy, I think we need to pay much attention what is going on there. And also the other point I want to bring out is that we need to get rid of also corruption in some of these CDF projects that are going on. Most of projects, I must say, they're quite disappointing because we find as the tender is being floated out there, it's just for formalities. And most of people that are selected are not even experts. They're just given because basically they've cut a deal in the back. So we really need to come up with serious policies that will guide and help to award certain tenders to basically qualified and the eligible bidders. It is very important to see development in that. Otherwise, all our talks and everything, meetings that we may have without basically getting rid of corruption, we cannot see much needed development. I think those are some of my concerns that I thought I should throw in my final remarks. And just a call for all policymakers, professors like Dr. Lemba, who has basically vast knowledge in the energy sector. So I've learned about you today that I would want to basically share certain. I've written up a document, and I would want to share it. Look at it, put up your input. I think it can make a big change if we have that kind of collaborations and support from veterans like you. I submit.
All right, so thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. This has been a great conversation. I think we need to have a follow-up conversation at some point to see where we are at. It's always important for people to network and collaborate, especially when we are all impacted by what is happening. I per se, because I'm actually out of the country in Trump Nation, so but I am still very much connected on the ground and seeing what is going on and how we can help. So Zambia has a long way to go, and I believe from the conversation that we've had here, you can clearly see that the solution is out there. The solution is readily available, staring in our faces, but I think it's a matter of us interacting and working together to formulate what is needed for us to move forward. And what I see for the most part on this other side of the world is there is always the open door arrangement where academia is networking or interacting with the manufacturing industry, the ministry itself. And we set out an invitation, for instance, to ZESCO, but obviously I think there were some challenges, the people who were supposed to speak, because it's you have to go through a number of loopholes, sort of like hurdles to get to the final person. But I believe in the next session, because we'll circle back next time to see if we can have representation from ZESCO so that at least they can hear firsthand from possibly boots on the ground, people who are affected, so that at least they can know where they need to make the necessary arrangements and necessary changes to ensure that at least this problem is something that eventually we can look back in hindsight and say, oh, we used to have power challenges, we used to have power shortages, and now it's a thing of the past. So I thank you all and looking forward to interacting even outside this platform, and to circle back at some point to see where we are at, and possibly solutions like Mr. Zita there from the Solamax. He has written up something which he intends to share with the professor, and likewise I think others. We encourage people to network so that at least at the end of the day, the goal is to address the challenges that are impacting the community and the country as a whole, so that at least we can get past this. I think it has, I used to think it was just going to be for a few months, but now almost a year in and 2 years, or I don't know how long now it's taking, the power challenges are still ongoing. So we hope this will be a thing of the past very soon. So, gentlemen, again, we appreciate your taking time from your busy schedule to be with us here to share your thoughts, and we are very much appreciative of that. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.